Algebra 1, Unit 3, Linear Functions, Equations, and Inequalities. We're in Module 6, Forms of Linear Equations, and Lesson 3 is in Standard Form. Okay, guys? So, do me a huge favor. We're going to be studying Standard Form, but I'd like to see if you remember the other forms. What exactly is a Standard Form? What is a Slope-Intercept form? And what is a point-slope form? Could you write those forms and all the necessary components over here, guys? Okay, so this is it right here. So let's not write this for now. Let's get rid of that for now. Okay. Cut. So standard form is when you have ax plus by equal to c. So standard form is when you have the variables x and the y on the one side of the equation, right? That's literally it. And then a, b, and c are integers. No fractions, please. Okay, let me just write that. No fractions and decimals. And then slope-intercept form, by the way, a and b both cannot be 0. Now ask yourself that question, why not? Well, if they're both equal to 0, then this number equal to 0, it's no longer a linear equation, right? Right. So one of them could be 0, either a or b can be 0, but not both, okay? And the slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is slope, b is y-intercept. And point slope form that we learned yesterday in the previous lesson. And we have a slope m and a point x1, y1. And that is not a good handwriting, so just give me a second. So point slope form is when you utilize point and a slope. So y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. The easy way to remember that, if you remember, is if you to divide to this side, guys, we would end up with this is equal to m, right? So that's a nice way to remember it. Now, the question that I had asked is that, well, this one has a slope and this one has a slope. Is there an easy way to remember what the slope here is? And the answer is yes. One of the ways you could do that is to, if you had solved for y, what would you get? Then by is equal to negative ax plus c. If you could divide both sides by b, we'll end up with negative a over b, x plus c over b. This right here is a slope, and that right is the y-intercept, right? So what you should know is that from here, the slope is simply negative a over b. And if you cannot remember that, just merely solve for y. If you do, you get to put that into the slope-intercept form, and anything in front of the x is known as the slope. Okie dokie. All right, guys. So our first example is this. Create a linear equation in a standard form given slope and a point. Okay. So if it's asking you, write equation in a standard form. What is the standard form again? Right. ax plus by is equal to c. That's what we got to do. Now, oh, by the way, generally speaking, I like to have a as positive number, generally speaking, okay? Now here, because we're given a point and a slope, we probably should use what? Point slope formula. Agreed? Yes. So this is the m over here. This is x1, y1. You could do that, or simply say m is equal to 2. x1, y1 is equal to negative 2, 2. And let's just copy this again. It's good practice, right? And after you do this for a while, it becomes a second nature. And then you plug in the values. My y1 is 2. My m is 2. My x sub 1 is negative 2, which makes it positive 2, right? So we're going to distribute the 2 to both sides like this, right? Then we end up with 2x. 2 times plus 2 is 4. Now, I just have to put all the x and y on the same side. This is really up to you, but I generally prefer to have 2x on the one side of the equation. Why don't we add 2 to both sides? Why don't we add 2 to both sides, which gives you y is equal to 2x plus 6, and then you can subtract 2x to both sides. We end up with 2x plus y is equal to 6, right? Therefore, or had you put the x over here and move the 6 on this side, we would have ended up with 2x minus y is equal to negative 6. Either one is okay with me. I generally prefer the x to be positive, but either one is okay. All right, guys? All right, guys. And then we have another case where we do want to have this in a standard form like this, right? So that's which is what ax plus by equal to c, but we're given 2 points. What is the first thing I should do when we are given 2 points, guys? What's missing? If you said slope, absolutely. So what is the slope? Oopsie, let me choose a different color. M is equal to change in y and change in x. So I could go left minus the right, or right minus the left. It really doesn't matter, actually. So minus 1 minus 4, and minus 2 minus 0. That gives you minus 5 over minus 2. And if there are 2 negatives, it becomes absolutely positive. And which one would you like to use? Here, we could go either way, actually. We could go either way, okay? Because we have a point and a slope, right? So we could go point-slope formula. True? In this particular case, right, we could just say that, hey, wait a minute, it's not just b. Exactly. But let's do both ways, shall we? All right. So in the first way, my generally preferred way, let's go point slope. That's I, point slope. So how do you do the point slope? In point slope, I have m is 5 over 2, and my x1, y1, you have to choose one or the other. I would, in this case, personally choose 0, 4. I like to go with the easier numbers because my calculation becomes easier. Usually if they're both positive versus negative, and I like 1s and 0s, so taking that into consideration, I think 0, 4 is a good choice. So now we got y minus y1 equal to m times x minus x1. So my y1 is 4, my m is 5 over 2, is x minus 0. Let's zoom that in just a tiny bit. So on the right hand side is 5 over 2x, y minus 4, and we don't like to have a fraction, so we need to get rid of the denominator, which is 2 here. So I multiply by 2 to both sides, and the 2 on the right hand side cancels, so we end up with 5x, and then that's 2y minus 8. And I generally prefer to have x's as positive, so that would be equal to 5x minus 2y equal to negative 8, therefore. Okie dokie. The other approach that you could have done, number 2 over here, is the slope intercept. Oops. Sorry, let me rewrite that. That was kind of bad handwriting. Slope intercept. What is my slope? 5 over 2. See this right here, guys? We know that that particular one is b is 4. We know that already. If you knew it, great. Then we're done. B is equal to 4. Then y is equal to 5x. So sorry, 5 over 2, x plus 4. And then that is not that much different from this over here, isn't it? I just moved the 4 to the other side. This is what I get. But let's pretend that we didn't recognize that. Okay? So we didn't recognize it. So we're just going to use, if you you know what? If you recognize it, great. But let's pretend that we didn't. Let's just put that in parentheses over here. So we're going to do m equal to 5 over 2, and we're going to use the point xy, or x1, y1, as 0, 4. So when you have y equal to mx plus b, plug in the values. My y is a 4, my m is 5 over 2, and my, what is this? x is 0. So therefore, b is 4. I'm in the same place at this point, am I not? So at this point, what we're going to do is multiply both sides by 2. 2 here like this, multiply by 2. What do you end up with? We end up with 2y is equal to 5x. Oopsie, sorry about that. 5x plus 8. And if you move this to the other side, we end up with what? Or negative 5x plus 2y is equal to 8. As I mentioned earlier, I would prefer to have x equal to positive, but it really doesn't matter. Okay? So these are the correct answers. Okay, guys? And just like here, these were the correct answers. Do me a huge favor. All right? There's a part B. Why don't you pause the video and try those problems and see if you can do them on your own. Okay? Pause the video. Okay, we are done. So here we go. Right? So for example 1b, this is what we have. Okay, let's try 2b. And here that works. The left hand side is, I did it by point slope formula. The right hand side, I did it as a slope intercept formula. Either one is fine, guys. Okie dokie. And clearly in this particular case, I decided to go with 5 and 2. Right? Generally, I prefer to go with positive numbers, but that's really up to you. Whatever makes you happy. And whatever is the easiest. Okay? Alright, guys. Let's go to the next page. Here we go. So in this particular case, we're creating a linear models in standard form. Ooh. Write the equation in a standard form. So once again, that right there is ax plus by is equal to c, where a and b and c are integers. Can't be fractions. Can't be decimals, guys. It has to be integers. Counting numbers, 0 and negative counting numbers, right? Those are the integers. How do I do this? Let's read part A together. A tank is filling up with the water at the rate of 3 gallons per minute. Tank already has 3 gallons in it before it starts being filled. The word rate, what does that remind you of? If you said slope, you're correct. Because of that, my slope is equal to 3. And here, tank already has 3 gallons in it before it gets getting filled. 3 gallons already exists. What is a similar idea that we learned in the past? If you're saying initial value, you're correct. This is the initial value, so this must be the y-intercept b. So b is equal to 3. So in this particular case, we have y is equal to 3x plus 3. And if you wanted to, basically we're done, right? So we simply, in order to make it into standard form, put the x on the opposite side. So they get negative 3x plus y is equal to 3. Or you could have said 3x minus y equal to negative 3, depending on how you decided to do this. Okay, guys. Why don't you try part B on your own? Okay. Here it is. Are you ready? Here's part B. Let me zoom that in a little bit. There you go. Now, in this particular case, hot tub is filled with 440 gallons of water is being drained. Oh, okay. So it already has 400 gallons, but it's being drained. So 440 becomes the starting value, which is the initial value, which means this y-intercept. An hour and a half later, it decreases to 320 gallons, or there's 320 gallons. So x is 1.5, my y is 320, and this one could be viewed as, because you need the x value, right? It's a 0, 440. But y-intercept is just a number, y value. When does it happen? When x equal to 0. So we got this right here. Okay. So we need slope. And slope is changing y, changing x. So I go 440 minus 320. We got that 120, right? Got 0 minus 1.5. Now over here, so we got 120 over 1.5. How do I do that? I prefer not to use a calculator, please. Right? And I think this is fairly doable. So this is negative 1.5 is negative 3 over 2. But when you divide by a fraction, we multiply by its reciprocal. That is correct. So when you do that, the 3 goes into 120 40 times. 2 times negative 2 is negative 80. So that's my slope. I get my y-intercept. Therefore, y is equal to 80x plus 440. Move the 80x to the other side. We now have a standard form. Okie dokie. All right, guys. I want you to add a little bit of note at the bottom of this, which is to say, if you're given a y-intercept b, then we might want to use slope-intercept form like y equals mx plus b. If not, we generally want to use standard point slope form, guys. If not, that's probably a good idea to use the standard form, point slope form. Okie dokie. All right, guys. That is it for this page. And then we have your turn. There you go. Okay. Pause the video. Try this on your own. We good? Okay, guys. Here are the answers. And then bottom 2 can be seen right here, guys. Okie dokie. All right, this is what we did in class. I shall see you in the next video. Have a good night.